the memory that determines all of your life. Not necessarily memory as personal memory, experiences, etc., but also as a historic perspective, as what you have been taught or what you have read, and through this you know or you identify with a certain community, a community bounded upon this shared perspective, this shared memory. And this historic perspective is like a lens, like the lens has different color, different depth, different sharpness, and this makes you look in a certain subjective manner or objective manner to a degree. And through this memory you form communities and your identity. It's called territorialization, as Deleuze calls it, or deterritorialization. And this also has to do with everything, also your name, your lineage. Everything is about memory, genetic memory, blood memory, and memory of words, books, historic perspective. And through this you will form a sympathetic connection with the people in the past, with your ancestors or the ancestors of another tribe. For example, your ancestors have been conquered by another tribe, and through this they have mind-fucked you and made you believe they were better, superior, like with the idealism. For example, Islam, Christianity, Judaism. If they conquer you in the history, you will feel pride in this religion, this ideology, and this community has a different perspective upon history and upon the future of idealism, how people should behave. And this collective memory will make you feel disgust towards your ancestors who are pagans, for example, and make feel pride in the memory of collective memory of Islam, of Jesus Christ, of the Church, Catholicism, Orthodoxism, etc. And we have a big problem in the European communities of forgetfulness, of we do not remember a thing of where we were, where we used to be, not even 60 years ago. I mean, the pollution of our minds have been totally fucked up, of course, with the educational filtering system, because we lost the war, the big war. But also, longer time ago, I mean, practically whole Asia used to be of the European peoples. We have been driven out or massacred, miscegenated with the Mongols and by the Mongols, the Mongoloid peoples. This is what we don't remember. People today will not even remember the newly born about a few fully European cities. They will always remember this good black guy, this good Arab guy. Not everybody is bad. You know, this subjective nitpicking instead of judging the average, or just tribalism. While they have tribalism, regardless of the good few or many European peoples they know, they will always feel this tribalism and loyalty. And we do not have this loyalty of memory, of lineage, the European peoples. And that's a very big problem. Can you think about how your grandparents teach you anything about history? No. Probably some World War II stories, maybe that's the maximum thing about their heroic battlefields, whatever. But like real history, no. They will not teach you. They're selfish bastards in this way. They care about the pension, about the economic stability, about having a good life, but they do not do any fucking trouble to teach you anything about our history, about where we came from, our traditions. They will just let it go and let the television, the media, the schools teach you whatever they want, and they don't give a fuck about anything else. And through this memory, we are now in a big problem because we do not know who we are, or we have a false sense of identity, or the memory is shared with too many people. This shared memory of collective multiculturalism, of humanism, secular humanism, democracy, of brotherhood in humanity. This is the memory of the common lowest denominator instead of selective taste, selective holy memory, like holy, like wholeness, selective, only within your tribe, your communal memory. This has been totally distorted, shared, raped, being a whore to anybody and everybody. And the few we do know about our history, even if we do know that we came from many parts from Asia, for example, we have a guilt complex about this, like we deserve, because we have this is the lens of history, the perspective of history, that we have a guilt complex, and this lens is just, we are always guilty, we are always in shame, they always deserve the better, we are always the bad ones, we deserve everything what's coming to us. But it's just total bullshit. While they honor people like Genghis Khan, we cannot even honor Adolf Hitler. Even if much of what they propagate today is not true, even if he did all the shit what the people propagate he did. So what? Cannot we be proud? Our Genghis Khan? No. While they raise and erect statues in honor to Timur, Genghis Khan, Babur, who massacred millions and millions of peoples, Eurasian peoples, we are being shamed into silence because of a few so-called tyrants. So what? But anyway, this territorialization and deterritorialization, this is also to be observed by touristic people, for example. Wherever they go, the territory of the state and of the collective memory of the people of the West will always follow. Wherever they will make a family or buy a house or property of land in whatever country, the communal memory of humanism, of bad Europeans, whatever, will always follow, and they will educate their children about this if they give a shit about anything about that, because we Europeans are just apparently a stupid people to never teach a thing about where we came from, what our true traditions are, about holiness. We don't teach a thing. This is how the Jewish people, for example, survive very good, because not only they have the literary tradition of reading a lot, but also the oral tradition. The oral is very important. You can easily change the books and be selective, censor a lot of books. But with the oral, it's just communal. It's like more selective, family within family within family, neighbors. And this is partialized memories, and these are very important, like family lineages. For example, my mother still has the name of her own mother, my grandmother, and her own grandmother, my great-grandmother, attached to her actual name, because this is a tradition to honor and remember your grandmother or grandfather and great-grandmother and great-grandfather. And this today is also observed in how we have just been given one name. Of course, the names already in the West are polluted with biblical names, like everybody has a copy-paste name of Paul, Simon, Joshua, whatever. I have been given a name of pagan times, but it's also not that personal, because there are enough other people who have this name. And we are too attached to certain name givings, and we cannot have the creativity anymore to come up with names, or have the pride in our language to make different words connecting to each other, which makes a whole name. For example, blonde-haired boy, in the Irish Old Gaelic language, in this book, the Magnobian, you have a lot of references to names and explanation of this, and they used to name these children just in their own language with different characteristics, and this name giving will be your territorialization of what you are. And in old times, when a name was not correctly given to you in regards with your personal character, you could change it, or it was more tradition to change it in accordance to your personal characteristics. But anyway, if you have appearance characteristics, then it fits well, the name. And a name will determine a lot of how you will behave, how people will see you, how they will judge you, your personality, your stand in the world. And today there's just too many copy-paste Hollywood names and biblical names, whatever. And in regards with the community of memories, this is, for example, to be observed very well now in the Ukraine, where you have Slavic people slaughtering each other with geopolitical bullshit from both sides, with Western interference, Putin's Eurasian bloc policies, whatever. But besides this, you have Ukrainian peoples in the Ukraine who speak merely the Russian language, and language is also territorialization. The language you speak reflects the literature you have access to, the people you have access to, and the history you have access to, and the historic perspective through which you read and through which you think. And then if you, for example, the Ukrainian peoples, who side with the Russians, or the Russian people who side with the Ukrainians, because they don't remember a thing. They just remember the language they grew up with, and they don't think further than 40 years ago, for example. And this language will territorialize the minds, and this will be a community of memories fighting each other, splintering each off from the state. So the Russian separatists from Ukrainian ethnicity, for example, even though they're both Slavic. And this is what memory does. This is what language does. This is what television does, the education does, what your parents tell you about you. This is what the name given to you does, and what the name you will give to your children. Territorialization, deterritorialization, memory, historic perspective. And this is what we need to read into. Be conscious about the history of, be as objective as possible, be subjective in regards with sharing, because memories are sacred in many ways. But also, memory of sharing is to let your enemies fear you for your ancestors, for what you are capable of, because you have still the blood and the capabilities of your ancestors in you. This is the memory. And each ethnic people have geopolitical, subjective, historic perspectives through which they will sympathize with their own or with the other people because of some bullshit war 100 years ago, and the language has divided them even though they are the same people. The religion has divided them even though they're the same people, same kin. So we need to take back our memory, our collective memory, a subjective memory, and treat it wholly. And territorialize our children, our minds, our names. We need to take back everything. For example, if I will walk with a big beard right now, people will probably judge me as a convert to Islam. That's bullshit. Is there any copyright on having a beard? We need to take back everything. Our appearances, our spirituality, our memories, the way we think, the historic perspective, the non-dualistic thinking of our ancestors beyond good and evil, and take it all back. I will walk with a beard. I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Jew, whatever. I have my own memory, I have a very broad memory, I'm well read, I am well traveled, and it cannot be well enough because we always need to learn, and need to broaden our perspective, our taste, be selective, and we need to survive as a group through memory. This is how the Jews survive. Memory, oral tradition, literary tradition, and sticking with each other. Sharing your memory with each other, but not with the whole fucking world. And this is now why you can understand what the media does, why it does. Is to mindfuck our peoples, to pollute our memory, to pollute our collective strive towards the future, because from the memory we built together with mixed people living in heterogeneous societies, living next to each other. You will not know anything else, and the history being censored or being rewritten with a different historic perspective, just bullshit propaganda, like real propaganda of non-historic correctness, instead of propaganda which correlates to facts. This is why the educational system attacks our people. This is why there's an excess of information, but too much useless information, and too much to dig around for our people to find the good information, if we have not already been mindfucked to think in a certain manner of good and bad. And so the memory is polluted, and a lot has been lost and will be lost. But we need to rewrite in accordance to our perspective, in accordance to our pride, in accordance to facts as well, our memory. And the language itself is a memory, and a memory of references. And this is why they degrade memory to the lowest common denominator, which is reflected in the current music, the current rap music and pop music, and the ebonics, this slang language. Instead of referring to deep conceptual thoughts and historic depth, it will be just lowered to consumption, production, economic terms, vacation ideal, sex, alcoholism, etc. and through these personal memories you will build up of visual images and experiences, and of course the second-hand memories you will get and gain from rewritten history. You will have a different strive towards the future, a different ideal, utopian ideal, heaven, whatever. And instead of homogeneous protection of your tribe, you will strive towards this multicultural utopia, for example. And this is all due to a polluted memory. Too many people don't care about memory, and if they do care about memory, it's about photo albums, it's about taking selfies, it's about degrading the memory to the material of, for example, you make a selfie and you post it on Facebook, and through these likes, whatever, and comments, these kind of people will feel like I exist. This is acknowledgement to their existence. Or the people who go to a vacation and they make a photo of a beautiful building or of a sunset, and their experiencing of this is, if I do not make this photo, I have not been there. People have to know I have been there. This is the pollution of our memory and degradation and materialization of our memory. It becomes all materialized in stupid photos and superficial experiences. And music is also a form of materialization of memory of in the musical instruments, written on paper, the notes of the music, and the songs themselves. Instead of how many people do know the folk songs of their people, of Dutch folk songs, Irish folk songs, Georgian folk songs, Western folk songs, whatever, of 1,000 years ago, poetry, Shakespeare, etc., etc., the oral tradition. This is why music is such a powerful tool. It's a certain ego frequency. This is how they control people, or they correspond to the lowest common denominator of the people, something which feels, which strikes the lowest common denominator, which unites the people to this unity of hedonism, materialism, of pleasure, etc., immediate gratification. And this ego frequency pollutes our behavior. It's, instead of the folk songs reflecting our ancestors and the joy of our ancestors, whatever, they put Nicki Minaj, Lady Gaga, and pollute our oral tradition. The ego frequency of the mass media corresponding to the masses, the plebeian people. We need to lead, direct the people, and stick together with a common memory of communal experiences like festivities, dance festivities, poetry festivities, folk music, and having sympathy towards each other, empathy, having a shared history, personal history with each other. And this will be polluted by having this universal, humanistic, globalist political pop music which sells because it's propagated, and this will be, other music is allowed, but it's not mainstream in regards with radio stations propagating it. It will be, and pop music also has this kind of tool or psychology of gratifying the mind time and time over again, and this is how people become addicted to certain tunes, literally addicted, and to certain easy words to spit out, to memorize, to share with the people. And this is why we need to memorize our books, our oral traditions, our folk music, our folk dances, our history of where we were, where we are now, of who were our ancestral enemies, what they did to us, what we did to them. We need to make the enemies fear through our memories, and we need to take pride through our memories. And this is the war of memories.